We're very excited about it, and we're getting really great widths and excellent grades through this system. So it's a kind of silver discovery that can work at any sort of silver price. And of course, now we're entering what we think is a multi-year bull market in silver. That's our belief. But yet it's wide open to depth. One of our deepest holes is in the lower center there, hole 199, where we hit 16 meters of over 600 grams per ton. Huge upside potential there. We see this project being able to have 100 million ounces or more. We're just about to begin drilling here by the end of the month. Crew will be back in and starting the first holes.
Today we're having a chat with Jim McDonald, CEO of Kootenay Silver, and there's so many threads we have to pull today, Jim. Of course, silver price has been on absolute tear recently, just shy of $40. You've released a resource for your flagship project. On the back of that, financed $20 million that you've raised, and now you're on the cusp of a 50,000 meter drilling campaign. So lots of threads to pull, but we got to start somewhere, and I would love to start with a high-level overview from your side on really what are the key takeaways anyone watching should take home with about Kootenay Silver from your side.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Stang. High level, Kootenay Silver, we're an exploration company focused in Mexico and focused on the discovery of silver deposits. We've made now 4 different discoveries. Columba, our new flagship project, being the most recent that you referred to, that we just put out a maiden resource on that project in June. Huge upside potential there. We see this project being able to have 100 million ounces or more, and very good geological reasons to expect that. Our resource that we just put out, the resource bodies are mostly in 3 different veins. There's numerous veins on the project yet to be drilled off. And all of those zones that we have resource estimate on them are wide open for expansion. So we have real high expectations for the project. We're very excited about it. Backing up a little higher level, look at the company. The 3 other deposits we have total 214 million ounces of M&I silver equivalent measured and indicated, and then another 54.9 million in the inferred category. So you add on the most recent resource estimate, the first estimate we ever did on Columba, at another 54 million ounces, and then we're now approaching over 300 million ounces of silver. So that's high level. We've been in Mexico for over 25 years. We've made all these various discoveries, which is a testament to our team in Mexico. We have an office in Sonora State there. We're very obviously very focused with Mexico.
Yeah, so many threads to pull there, Jim, on your exciting company. Before we go into the flagship project, perhaps we can touch base on really what the vision is with these projects. Is it to develop it yourself, really build a mine here, or what is the thesis behind working on these projects?
Yeah, so the high level objective is to build these things up to a size and to a stage that a mining company wants to buy them out. That's where we're going. Columba we're very excited about it because of the grades we're seeing there and the widths on these veins. It's a classic vein system, and we're getting really great widths and excellent grades through this system. So it's a kind of silver discovery that can work at any sort of silver price. And of course, now we're entering what we think is a multi-year bull market in silver. That's our belief. So we're now touching $39 today. It's a pretty incredible time to be in the silver space. The other projects that we have, in the last several years, silver's been trading basically between $18 and $22 for a long time. And those projects were not viable economically at those prices, but they start to look interesting now. We updated all our resources on the other 3 deposits. We updated our resource reports to bring them current within about the last 18 months. So we want to move those forward when we get further into the silver bull market we believe we're in, and we can get better value for those assets. In the meanwhile, we're really focused on drilling off this new Columba discovery with our 50,000 meter program we're embarking on, and growing that resource to the 100 million ounce mark and hopefully beyond.
Great. Thank you, Jim, for that overview. Talking about the resource that you recently announced, I wrote down here 54.1 million ounces of silver. at a grade of 284 grams per ton. So that's silver, not silver equivalent, which I think is noteworthy. You of course also have lead as zinc in a resource there. Those are quite high grades, especially if we're talking silver, not silver equivalent.
Yeah, it's very silver dominant. These systems can grade into base metals deeper down and change their character. That's pretty typical. This may happen here. We'll find out as we do further drilling on the project as we move forward. And another important thing, I mean, the silver, it's not silver only, it's silver dominant. Over 90% of the value is going to be in silver, and we reported only the silver in our grade there. The interesting thing about Columba is geologically it sits in an old volcano, and the erosional exposure of the vein system is at the very tip top of this vein, epithermal vein system. This is an aerial view, and you can kind of see the caldera shape there. You see a rim going around, the yellow lines are the main veins. The bottom of that old volcano has just clipped the top of the veins where they start to have silver and start to be strongly developed. Higher in elevation in any direction, you lose those veins entirely, and the silver goes back to background. There's nothing. But you follow the structure, it turns into a broken breccia rock, and you can map it. You don't see anything at surface at higher elevations, but when you drill down to that level, erosion low and deeper, you start picking up the silver. So this thing is almost entirely preserved from erosion and is sitting today almost as it was when it was deposited. Pretty incredible. And when you look at the scale of this vein system from the upper left to lower right on those yellow lines, that's 4 kilometers extent. So as a vein system, and the 3 kilometers in the other direction, it's got the scope of size for the 100 million ounces. That's what we came in early on in this project, what excited us, that and the old assays from the historic mine that you see in that inset picture on this image. So it had been mined from 1900 to 1910, again around 1958, 1960 on that one vein. And the old records of assays from that old mine showed some really consistent assay numbers along the tunnels, which we found very interesting, some really excellent grades. So we went in, picked the project up under option, drilled that right away to confirm it, and then since then I've drilled numerous other veins, some incredible hits like half kilo over 34 meters, nearly 18 meters of 50 silver in another hole. One hole was 98 meters of drilled length of over 200 grams. So some very broad fat zones within these veins too that help build up the ounces quickly. So the scale is one thing. It tells us, all right, it's got the size to have that much silver. And then when you start getting those drill intercepts, of course, that's very exciting. And now we've got real proof in the pudding with the maiden resource, which 54 million ounces. That's the resource estimate. That really shows you where you're going. That's where we wanted to be with the maiden resource, so we were quite happy with that. And we have a following slide there, Stang, after this one, where we compare the size of our vein system, which is on the right-hand side, with other much more advanced projects in Mexico. In the middle is the Panuco discovery, and it's over 300 million ounces. So you see that scale of that system, and that's silver equivalent. And then on the left-hand side is the Las Chispas mine. It was discovered about 8 years ago. It's been operating for 3 years or so. Just sold to KOOYF, and it's had a last resource that I saw put out on it was 140 million ounces. So geologically, when you go in there and you look at these projects, one of the things you look at is just the aerial extent of it. It gives you a hint. But then the drilling is really what tells you, and our drilling has turned out just excellent results here. We're quite happy with it.
Yeah, some of those intercepts are truly juicy. And now, of course, you're on the cusp of a 50,000 meter drilling campaign. Perhaps we can talk a bit about what the targets really are, what the thesis is you're testing, and also maybe a split of what of this drilling budget's allocated for exploration of new veins, expansion of known veins, or also definition of maybe trying to get the spacing between your holes a bit lower.
What we're showing here is where our priority lies by color. So very high priority in the sort of fuchsia pinkish color there. High priority in the red, medium in the orange, and then low priority in the green. Low priority is veins that we know are there don't even have a single drill hole in them. And then the very high priority are where the resource bodies are currently that we have in our resource estimate. And those bodies, all of them, are open, still open. We haven't found the limits of any of them. And so we've got tremendous high probability extensions here to all these zones that we'll drill early on. So we're just about to begin drilling here. By the end of the month. The crew will be back in and starting the first holes. So what we're going to be doing is going after that low-hanging fruit at the very high priority zones in those different veins, F, B, and D in particular. And the first sort of 25,000 to 30,000 meters will go in that area. And then we'll start to drill the next priority and the next priority after that. The reason we're doing it that way is as I said, the silver zones in all of those veins haven't been defined to their limits. They're still open-ended. They're still growing. It's going to get bigger. We don't know how much bigger. But for example, on that D vein, most of our drilling is defined in sort of the top 250 vertical meters of that particular vein. And on this long section shows it nice. So you look on the right hand side, you see the 1500 meters, that's meters above sea level, and the 1750 meters above sea level. So that band in there is where most of the drilling is. But yet it's wide open to depth. One of our deepest holes is in the lower center there, hole 199, where we hit 16 meters of over 600 grams per ton. The true width of that, I think, was 5 or 6 meters, if I remember right. And with a high of 7 kilos inside that. So just a fabulous hole. But just as important as that hole is on the lower left, you see a hole there numbered 196B. And it was an aggressive step out. It basically took that panel from a 250 meter length to 540 meters. So it was a big step down just to see if we could hit the structure there. And we did. More or less where predicted. And that's a huge step out in these kind of mineral systems. And it basically doubles the extent of the mineralized structure. That's what it told us. Now, on the high-grade portion of the vein, we hit a cavity. It's just a hole, like a little cavern. But as we came into it, we're coming into what we call the hang wall mineralization. So this vein kind of has two parts. It's got a hang wall stockwork, sort of medium grade, and then it'll have a main vein where your real high grade is. So we just got into that medium grade zone, just entering where the high grade would be, and we hit the cavern. So we were disappointed in that, but we were quite happy to hit that structure and know it's mineralized down that deep, because that tells us your potential going to depth has just doubled. So pretty exciting for us. Then the other thing about this image that you're showing here is on the far right hand side we have a hole 164 with the 98 meters of over 200 grams per ton. I think the true width there was about 48 meters. And so real fat zone and very little drilling over there. Most of the drilling on the right hand half of the image is roughly 100 meters. There's a few places where it's closer, tighter, but I mean it's 100 to 200 meters in spacing on that side. So there's kind of a gap in there. We need to infill because it doesn't pull it all into the inferred resource. You need 100 meter spacing. So the approach here is going to be very simple. We're going to take and drill in a grid pattern across this vein at fairly regular 100 meter intervals, going across and going up and down, and just drill that, find the limits of what we have. And we know it's continuing, so we just simply need to find the limits and drill in that kind of grid pattern because we have enough control of the vein now. We know where it's going more or less, and also at 100 meter spacing, that's close enough for us to be able to pull it into a new resource update at some point.
Great. Thank you for that overview there, Jim. And something I noticed when I was scrolling through your presentation is that on some slides you reference some old workings, some historical workings on your project. Is that a boon while trying to explore? Is it a detractor? Maybe you can talk about how this is affecting your drilling campaign.
This is what we call the F vein, and it's an old, it was where the old mining occurred. And it's the only vein that was really exploited there historically. So it's very important because it's what got us interested in the project to begin with. Told us, hey, there's silver there, and there's some pretty high grades here. Now the old mine is flooded, so we couldn't get in, but we could do enough work from the surface and comparing things to the historic data to have some confidence before we came in to acquire 100% of the project. So that got us in there, and that told us this vein system is productive. So that was very important. And not a lot of mining occurred here. Our guesstimate on this is that about 100,000 tons were ever extracted. But it also told us this was a pretty serious effort for an early 1900. They put a shaft down there, 200 meters, 6 tunnels off it, just were into production, and then the Mexican Revolution shut it down. So we've got over 40 holes in here, and this makes up a decent portion of the current resource. Most of the resource is in that D vein that we were just looking at. And so this is still open to depth. You can see in this image there's some holes there at the bottom, very bottom, at the hole 12, an early hole, in 700 gram material, still open to depth. So some of our immediate program will be filling a couple gaps here and then pushing this whole vein to depth to see how far it does go. And you'll notice that on the left hand side, 1,600 meters above sea level, we know the vein systems here are productive at least down to nearly that 1,200 meters above sea level elevation. So lots of room here, and a real nice zone here on the F vein.
Thank you, Jim. And something else I was wondering about is that it looks like some of the veins might actually be cross-cutting. When I'm talking to some other explorers or developers, they say that those zones might be of extra interest because you might have veins on top of each other, therefore a bit of a higher grade, less dilution when actually mining. Is that something of interest to you as well when these veins seem to be cross-cutting? Is that an area where you're focusing on?
Yeah, that's typical across the globe on vein systems and other types of ore bodies where you have zones of dilation, so where things open up. So these are fractures. All these veins come up broken fracture zones, and where they bend, you'll either get compression on the bend or you'll get extension on the bend. Extension means it opens up. It's a dilation. It opens up. Allows a lot of fluid flow to go in there. And what causes those zones to be like that, those flexures in the direction, those bends. And usually it'll be another cross-cutting structure like that will cause it to bend and open up. So yes, where you have intersecting veins, very often a good place to look for somewhere that's fattened and enriched. Rock type changes too. When it goes across rock type changes, it can bend and do the same thing. And in the vertical sense, you'll see the same kind of thing happen. It'll bend, and those zones can also be things you look for. So as you get into the detail of the geology and you learn more and more about it, you start to see those things that are controlling that or where they're happening, and you can preferentially target it. And on the D vein, for example, we got enough drilling on that. Those colored maps that we show in the long section of the F and the D, those are gram meters. So the intercept and grade times the thickness. And so they're showing you more or less where the best open zones are and what direction they're going, and that's what you preferentially follow. And they can shift as well, so you've got to watch out for that. That can happen. And so that what you're pointing out is very true, and that's something that we certainly map out and look for and prioritize.
Yeah, I think we have a great picture of what's currently already there in your resource of about 50 million ounces of silver. Of course, also the potential is very clear. Those high-grade, thick intercepts you've shown on your DFAN in the past. Very interesting if you're able to replicate that across your project. Something else I noticed while researching before this interview was this slide where you're acquiring a couple of claims in the area. Of course, the claims we're talking about compared to the land package that you're acquiring look tiny. And there we might already be talking about 100 million ounces. Is there, what is the rationale behind this? What is the blue sky potential that makes you acquire all these claims?
Well, it's just to cover the whole potential of the area. So, and in the case of in the central part, if you go, so you see the gray shaded zones here. Those are fractions that we do not own. We're in discussions on some of that, of course. It covers about 10% or so of the strike length that we now know to exist on the property. So they certainly want to have fractions that we want to acquire. And they're not, it's not the sort of thing where you have to have it, but certainly something that we want to have, and we're working on consolidating that. So we want to consolidate the whole district. Then the other larger application you see around it is an application process, and of course with the mining law changes we took that to what we call an amparo, because the old administration had cancelled all applications, which was against the law, as it were. And so, like hundreds of other mining companies, we've got amparos filed on that and have that moving through the process, the legal process. But our objective here is eventually we'll acquire all of this ground here and to cover any other potential that we don't see, because we're very focused on the core there that is exposed. But when you get a mineral system like this, there's quite often a lot more going on that you don't even yet understand, that some years later will suddenly become important with new discoveries. So you always want to cover the ground as well as you can.
Yeah, in mining there's always surprises, and when you're talking about a big project, a big mine, those surprises oftentimes tend to be positive, especially on the geology front. Very interesting there. Would love to zoom out now. Of course, you have 3 other projects in your corporation as well. Perhaps you can take us through really what the vision there is and what you plan to do with these projects going forward.
Yeah, we touched on that earlier. So the 3 other projects, there's La Ciguera, and that's over 60 million ounces in total in that project. It's about 52 in the measured indicated, and then about 11 nearly in the inferred. And it sits in the famous Pearl district of Mexico. So that shows its location, and the green is the concession boundaries, and the ellipsoid in the upper part of this image there's numerous structures up there with really great potential. And there's one structure we follow for 10 kilometers long that the resource sits in. And as we follow that going to the south, which is the bottom of the image, it disappears into a broad valley. The structure is covered. And that trend re-emerges to a huge famous district to the south of us called Santa Barbara, San Francisco del Oro, where over 500 million ounces have been produced. Started mining 450 years ago or more, a little more. And Grupo Mexico is mining there today at a 2,000 meter depth. So it's just an incredible geologic area. Our deposits is constrained in an open pit. It's right at surface, and most of our drilling is less than 150 meter vertical depth. So tremendous upside here. A couple years ago, we redid all the logging and geology on the project, came up with a tighter geologic model because the old model was diluting grade. And we come up with a better grade of 102 grams, and for an open pit, that's a pretty nice grade. But at a low $20 silver price, it didn't make sense to spend money here. But now it's starting to look interesting. So we've updated this resource I think it was about 18 months ago. We put a new estimate out to bring new metal prices in, new costs in, everything else that goes into a resource estimate. Because we wanted to have it prepared, because we saw this silver market coming, and we wanted this project prepared for when we get further into what we think is a multi-year silver bull here. So now that's done. When you get into these $30 prices, especially high $30 prices, on paper this starts to look pretty interesting. So we'll start to look internally at some scoping and see just when this thing deserves to be moved forward. The next steps here would probably be a short drill program, because internally on this resource there's a gap. It's got the potential to add 10, 15, maybe even 20 million ounces to what's there within that one pit shell. Never mind the exploration potential at depth or on elsewhere in the property. There's lots of other targets. The district's amazing. It's just one of those areas, once you get into production, you're just going to be producing for decades, keep finding more stuff. So we've got that ready to go at the right time. And in the meanwhile, we're obviously very focused on the new Coloma discovery and getting that to increasing the size. The other two projects, Promontorio and Negra, sit in Sonora State. And Promontorio was our original discovery. Huge diatreme system. It's a silver, gold, lead, zinc, low grade, big. Could get bigger still. And then the second discovery called La Negra that we made a few years later. And that project was very exciting. It sticks right out of the ground. It's that hill there in the image. That's the mineral zone. So you could see with an open pit, you could start quite cheaply, low cost here, because it's exposed so well. And for open pit, the grade is excellent, 129 gram. You can see there in the indicated, and at 22 million ounces indicated and inferred 4.6 million. When we made the discovery here, Pan American got very excited. They had a plant 200 kilometers to the south that was about to shut down, and they wanted to take the project on. They did a JV with us. They were going to provide all the capital to build a mine, go right to production all the way. If La Negra got to 50 million ounces, that's what they needed to carry our 25%. It didn't get that big, so we got it back 100%. Now, we think it's ideal for a smaller producer, especially one who can build capital costs very tightly and cheaply. The potential margins open pit here are great on Negra. The metallurgy looks very simple. Leach it with good recoveries, the metallurgy done to date. So we put out a maiden resource on that within the last about 18 months. And then we also at the same time updated the Promontorio report to change all the metal pricings to be metal pricing and mining costs to be more current at the same time. So these projects, again, all of them, all these other three, just been prepared to move ahead in some manner when we get further into what we think is a pretty strong silver bull market.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a lot of optionality to take these projects off the shelf, develop them correctly, maybe joint venture, whatever you need to do to get them moving forward during this upcoming silver bull market.
Yeah, we certainly do. We're pretty excited. Great position to be in. This silver's really breaking out here now. And so these projects are set to go. And in the meanwhile, we're just firing up the drills now and see how big we can make Colomba.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time. I would also love to touch base quickly on yourself and the team that you've assembled around Kootenay Silver. Perhaps you can give us a quick overview or rundown of who you have assembled and who's running this company.
Yeah, okay. So we have an excellent team in Mexico and on the management and on the board side. High level, we cover the industry, so to speak, the exploration in the mining industry, right from the grassroots prospecting level, we call boot and hammer, out there breaking rocks in the ground and finding new things right out in the field. From there to drill discoveries, to resource definition, to feasibility, to mine build and mine operations, and then financing every one of those steps along the way. That's our team. That's on our board and that's in our management. Both. And so for a junior company, it's a lot of depth. There's not very many junior companies with that sort of depth. So we've got excellent depth in the company. The team in Mexico is a really great team, geologists mostly, and they've been with us. and just a fantastic office manager as well. Makes things run well down there smoothly. Very conscientious group, very hardworking, very smart. And they've been with us, the core of the team, sort of between 7 and 15 years. So super team down there, execute really well, always maintain excellent relations with local people, negotiate deals for us on land access and even on project acquisition. So great team. And then on sort of the management level, myself, I'm a geologist by education. I've been in the junior resource side since 1988, putting deals together. The most successful to date of which was a company called National Gold. We bought an out-of-the-money gold deposit in the year 2000, when gold was $280 an ounce. And it had a resource on it of over 4 million ounces and a feasibility on over 2 million ounces there. And we got into a bidding process, won the bidding process, luckily, and then went out to finance the project. It was Placer Dome and Kennecott selling the Mulatos project to us in Sonora State. And they transferred the title of the property to us for a down payment of $50,000, if you can imagine. But then it was secured against debentures that we had to pay. And we had these deadlines and payments. And we went out to finance thinking we had the tiger by the tail here. And but nobody wanted to invest in gold. Gold is $280. Are you kidding? Analysts were saying gold was going to $160, and this couldn't make money at $280. And never mind, it's going lower. That was the sentiment. So incredibly difficult. We had to renegotiate several times, and the long and short of it is we brought in eventually John McCluskey and Chester Miller in to help us finance it, and they had a junior called Alamos Minerals. And so we did a JV with them. They brought in the money. We merged the companies in 2003, and that became Alamos Gold. And I left in 2012. I think we were doing nearly 200,000 ounces a year on that deposit we'd bought. And it's still operating for them today. I mean, John's done an unbelievable job from that point, growing the company to where it is today. And that was my introduction to Mexico. Huge eye-opener. And as to the potential there that exists, and Columba is one of those projects just like that. Here, Columba is a vein district. Well, it wasn't until we got in there working it could be recognized as a new vein district, we're calling it, because of it's not well exposed, as we discussed earlier. But here was a project that had been mined twice in the past, and when we came onto the project, there'd been nothing done in almost 40 years and it had never been drilled. So just these incredible opportunities down there. We were so excited about getting back to Columba, of course, and starting this 50,000 meter program. And then our chairman, Ken Berry, he put an open pit mine into production about 8 years ago in Arizona, gold mine, heap leach. And so, yeah, just getting back to the experience thing that we have on the team here. And really great depth. And now we're on to our newest discovery, which we think is our best discovery to date. And really excited to get going here and finishing this drill program.
I can imagine it's a very exciting story, and also that backstory with Alamos Gold. Really interesting to hear. Thank you for taking us along. Quickly touching base on the finances as well. Of course, they're looking great when you recently have raised 20 million gross. Perhaps you can take us along how far it will take you, and also give a quick overview of the cap table, how that's looking like.
Yeah, so just over 80 million shares issued now with that most recent financing. And prior to that financing, the warrant structure, where it was about 17 million warrants outstanding, expiring from November this year until May next year, with prices of $1.10 to $1.68. And so with what's happening in the silver market and us drilling and putting out results, real good opportunity here and chance that we see a lot more money coming in from the warrant exercise. That would be very nice to see, of course. We got big shareholders like Eric Sprott in there. We've got some very notable funds and resource investment funds in there, like Sprott Asset Management, KOOYF, which is Gold 2000, A big fund out of Dallas, Texas also holds a good position called Condire. And then on top of that, we have about 9,000 registered retail shareholders that we know about. So great distribution on that end as well. And then on the drilling side, we're going to be starting here just in the next several days. We made an announcement that crews are mobilizing in. And we'll be drilling for the next at least 10 months here, pretty steady. And really looking forward to getting those results out, going after what we call that low-hanging fruit immediately. The first 25,000 to 30,000 meters approximately, we really focused on those main 3 veins where most of the resource sits right now, because every one of those zones is open to expansion. So step 1 is find the limits of what we already know, and we're really excited to get going. And so the investors can look forward to drill starting and then lots of drill results coming over the next several months.
Lots of optionality, lots of resources already baked into the company right now, lots of exploration potential, very exciting times ahead, especially in the current silver environment. Thank you so much, Jim, for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Stang. It was a pleasure to be on your YouTube channel, and look forward to doing it again sometime.